You know,
We've just been
I
told
I
that's
have
what it
an
is.
unquenchable thirst for validation, farm out my self-worth to external approval in this way that I know shrinks will tell you steer away from that, but it's pretty
It's been
gratifying.
good for
Yeah.
you.
It's all the way through development, through post-production,
Yeah.
into marketing and promo. And I have 4 kids, and I
Yeah.
don't ever want to be on a first name basis with any of them. No, I don't ever.
Hi, besties. It's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. So, do you know what Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds do when they want to get out of a PR crisis? They clog a docket with a bunch of filings, blaming Wayfair for not fulfilling discovery, attaching 4,000 attachments, proving that they are being bad people, file a motion for sanctions against the opposing counsel, and then quietly file a document about subpoenas that were issued to content creators and tell a judge that all of the issues have been resolved, even though they haven't been. And then at the very bottom of the letter, then quietly ask them to just, dismiss all the requests that have been for sanctions. First of all, if you were if you were Blake Lively and you had filed that stuff, if you had said, I want a protective order, I want all of these things, please respond, you need to respond now. I want sanctions. And then Wayfair just responded by putting a footnote at the end of a letter. Can you imagine how Blake Lively would respond to that and how her lawyers would respond to that? They would act like Blake was being victimized yet again. It's very wild. But the letter to the court is dismissing subpoenas against Lynette and Popcorn Planet and Swifty Forever and a TikTok subpoena for Pop Diaries. And it says that Miss Lively requests that the court deny any such motions as to these usernames as moot, which would resolve all outstanding motions to quash as to the social media subpoenas to Google, X, TikTok, respectively. And then at the very bottom, a small, tiny footnote says, following Miss Lively's July 27th, 2025 letter seeking to deny 5 non-parties motions to quash as moot, the court denied such motions. Since then, 4 of those 5 non-parties filed additional letters and or motions seeking, for example, to quash the subpoenas, sanctions, a protective order, and or to proceed anonymously. Dockets 506, 515, 523, and 518, and 535. Given the court has already denied these non-parties' underlying motions as moot, she requests that the court deny all such further requests on the same grounds. So Lethal, Lauren, Cassidy, Ashley, and existing to thrive. But it also references 515, which is to leave to proceed anonymously. So she is telling the court, like, I don't even have the energy to respond to these. I don't care to because you've already denied these. So can you just like deny all of these as moot? Can you just ignore their motions for sanctions? That's not even how you properly respond to a motion for sanctions. And most interestingly, she did not respond nor include Perez Hilton in this. She says that all of the motions to quash are now done. She claims the social media subpoenas are all done and over. But it still begs the question is, what did Google do? What did TikTok do? What did X do? Did they hand over the data of those people that did not fight it? And does the court not care about the entirety of the subpoena? Because if it's wrong for one and it's overbroad for one and it's not legal for one, it's not legal for all. But Blake's team says that they don't get to decide that that's not an issue for the court. Just deny all of these, just ignore them. We don't care. So it appears that her response to a very bad week where she was going after the internet is to then flip the narrative. And then this week, it's all about accusing Wayfair of not complying with discovery and accusing Brian Friedman of being relentless and trying to ruin her character. All just a distraction, all just PR filings. And some of the discovery requests that she's upset that she hasn't received are related to items that they probably just don't have. I mean, Blake has admitted that she doesn't like the word no, and Ryan doesn't like the word no, right? And so if they don't like the word no, being told that they don't have something apparently isn't satisfying for Miss Lively. I think one of the most egregious demands, though, in her motion to compel, and I say this very lightly, is her exasperation, her feigned outrage, her I can't believe I don't have these documents is to Jen Abel. She can't understand why she hasn't received communications from Jen Abel during the period of promotion. She can't figure out why Jen Abel hasn't been able to produce documents for her. I thought you knew, Blake. Jen doesn't have her phone anymore. I thought you were aware, Blake, that Stephanie Jones took her phone. Jen Abel doesn't have access to her email account at JonesWorks. She doesn't have access to the old phone number that she had. Do you remember that? Did you know that, Blake? So messages that were on the phone and not in the cloud, she doesn't have, Blake, because y'all took the phone and then y'all stole the phone and y'all extracted the contents of the phone, and then Stephanie handed it over to you through a sham subpoena. Remember that? And then she's angry that the Wayfarers, they're not following the protocols for the ESI, and they don't have the metadata. And yet she literally handed over an entire file from Stephanie Jones, which she took through the Van Zandt lawsuit, which wasn't her company, by the way. And she told them, well, just kidding. It's out of protocol. And if it's and some of these don't have any metadata. And so they could be altered because some of them are lacking metadata. And apparently, some of these that are lacking metadata are also the same ones that she hasn't received, because she claims that Melissa Nathan hasn't sent her the text message of what was included for her campaign, the one that says that it would be untraceable, the one that she claims was sent on August 6th with the quotes. And it was from Melissa Nathan to Jennifer Abel. And it says, hi, Jamie and Jen. And yet Jamie's not copied on here. Isn't that weird? So incredibly glad that the press went so well today. And from what I know, Justin felt incredibly supported. He's so lucky to have you all. We took the day today to do some research and get digital quotes in from the two teams we use that get the best results. As you are both aware, we are in a predicament that we just do not know the outcome of right now. Saying that, full transparency is key here. We have seen the most innocuous issues from turn giant due to socials, or the huge crisis have no effects on social whatsoever. You just cannot tell at this stage. But BL does have some of the TS fan base, so we will be taking it extremely seriously. We also understand audience is not solely JB fan base, but the studio, so it is covering all bases time. This was not about just Blake Lively, by the way. This campaign was about anything that happened during this crisis, during the rollout. Quote one, this is including, the 3 to 4 months, 175,000, full Reddit, full social media takedowns, so full social crisis team on hand for anything, engage with audiences in the right way, start threads of theories to discuss. This is the way to be fully protected. Quote two, 25,000 per month. And that's going back and forth with negative counts. And it says all of this would most importantly be untraceable. There's a lot more to both of these quotes, but easier to discuss via the phone in terms of capabilities and what I have personally experienced in and out of crisis scenarios. Either way, I do feel it is better to be safe, and I do realize costs are something I am sure you did not count on when you took on this project nor the situation. Let me know when you would like to discuss more around PT tomorrow. Okay. M, priority normal. It apparently came from Jen Abel's phone. But you know what? Blake doesn't have this text. And you know what? Wayfair never shared this text in any of their documents. It's not included in their timeline of relevant events. It's not included in any of their discussions. They did include some text messages back and forth with, Jen and Melissa. She said this is time to make a decision on social planning, would rather be in front in the back, and it costs way more in the back. That's all I always say, and I hope I'm 100% wrong, but I just have to flag you know what that's my job. Do you think we need it from what you're seeing? Because we have also planned a response if needed, considering all of the interviews he's doing between now and Friday. And she said, not at this second, but it's one of those better safe than sorries. But from what I'm saying, I don't think you need it this second, but you may want to really be aware. So on the same day, she claims that she said it was untraceable. They were saying their communications don't look at that, and that these were just like a plan, but they didn't provide this breakdown in their complaint. There were several text messages that Blake's complaint had that the Wayfair parties didn't have in their complaint. And I often wondered during the process if they didn't have them because they didn't happen, or if they had been deleted by those parties and they didn't have them anymore. But there was messages that she included in hers that they didn't include in theirs. And this was one of them. The untraceable one does not show up anywhere in their complaint, and it does in Blake's. And now Melissa hasn't provided it to Blake. And in Melissa's response, she claims that the text message was sent by her, but she denied that Blake, it was being represented the way that Blake was claiming in her lawsuit. And I mean, to be very clear, sometimes attorneys don't always get the answers right. So I don't know. There's been this one nagging concern I've had this whole time is that because there's metadata missing and because some of them don't have that, it means that some of these are not or could not be authentic, meaning some of these could have been altered. Does it mean that it's a fake text message? No. Could a line have been added in there? Yes. But does the untraceable say what we think it says? This doesn't say that the untraceable has to do with targeting Blake or spreading false information about Blake. It's about making sure that the social medias stay on track with the film without it being obvious to the audience that it's them doing it. It had nothing to do with being untraceable to Blake, being untraceable to the audience. Going back and forth with negative comments on their social medias, meaning the social media for It Ends With Us, to keep them on track, positive for the film. I don't know. Apparently, Melissa hasn't provided that to her. So I don't know if Melissa doesn't have it or if Stephanie altered it, but maybe she'll give it up to her. Something else that is in here is a privilege log where she's trying to get around Wayfair claiming privilege with communications about attorneys. And she really wants to know why they hired Brian Friedman. And did they hire Brian Friedman because he has social media people that will speak for him and do his work for him? And is this why they've decided to work with Brian Friedman? Because that's her theory, right? And Brian Friedman's name shows up in September, and it's an email that's from Jen Abel and Justin, and it's to Jamie Heath, Jen Abel, Brian Friedman, Tara Hanks, Justin Baldoni, Jed Wallace, Melissa Nathan, and Jamie Heath, and it's relating to potential engagement of outside counsel on September 16th. And that appears to be the only time that Brian Friedman's emailed. So if she thinks that Brian is somehow involved in this scheme, one email in September ahead of litigation, and then separately, Emily and the counsel that represents Wayfair emailed people about legal advice regarding potential litigation. Now, this is the same time that they are actively dealing with the breach of contract with what happened to Jen Abel's phone. And they spent almost all of the fall trying to figure out what they were going to do with JonesWorks. And it's clear that there was what looks like the possibility that they were going to sue JonesWorks. There also appeared to be the possibility that they were going to sue Blake. There was also discussion in here about bonuses that Blake got for the box office and the performance at the box office. But a lot of what they were worried about in the fall was directly related to Jones Works breaching their contract by sharing Jen's phone and even going to lawyers on the very day that Miss Jones stole the data from Jen's phone and gave it to Blake Lively on August 21st. And as I'm looking through this privilege log, the one thing that is clear to me is that if this is supposed to be a company that is concerned about litigation, right? And if Blake is saying there's an untraceable campaign here, I would assume that they would, not have many emails with their attorneys about what was going on, right? They'd be keeping this all out of the loop with their attorneys, but they didn't. Everything that they did, they documented with attorneys. Even the hiring of Melissa Nathan was done on the advice of attorneys. They even would email during the promotional tour attorneys to make sure that they remained in compliance regarding Blake's rider, facilitating provision of legal advice regarding legal compliance with actor agreements. On the 26th, they're seeking legal advice regarding negotiations over Lively's actor agreements and box office bonuses. Blake Lively was trying to get more money, it appears, for the bonuses of the box office. And there appears to have been something going on during this time period where they needed a lot of help about compliance with these bonus agreements and if actors were going to get paid based on the box office performance. And I did a little bit of digging and I wonder if there was like a morality clause within this, because this is a common stipulation that if the actor or actress does something on the promotional tour that could negatively impact the film, they could be precluded from the bonuses that they sign for when they sign their contract. And if there was arguments or discussions or going back and forth about the bonuses, is it possible that her promoting her alcohol line during this negatively impacted the promotion, negatively impacts the film, gets the film all kinds of negative media attention, if that somehow got in the way of her achieving her full bonus? Because during that same time, they're also talking about possible litigation and preparing for countersuits and suits against her. I think there's a lot of different motives here. Obviously, Ryan had motive because he wanted them to take blame for the marketing, which they claim harmed the film. And I think the marketing that they chose to do, which included promoting the alcohol, could have played a role in Blake possibly being denied bonuses. There's been something underlying about all of this. It's the money component, because if you look through her complaint, it's all about her being annoyed that she's doing all of this work and they're going to be the ones getting paid and she should be the one getting the money. And they were already talking about suing her in September and in August. So really, is it her developing this quasi complaint through these fake allegations so that she can beat them to the punch and also try to get them to take ownership for the missteps of Ryan? I think their conduct on the promotional tour cost the film money, and I think they knew it. And so I think they got ahead of themselves. And, she keeps complaining that they're not providing her evidence of a smear campaign, but the privilege log that they shared showed that if they were smearing her, they were very worried about complying with her nudity rider and her side letter, and they definitely didn't want to do anything to jeopardize that. Their constant reliance on their attorneys is clear, specifically when it comes to Blake. And Blake wants them now to produce documents that don't exist. And it also makes me question on if this untraceable email or text by Melissa was fabricated or altered. I have so many questions now and no answers. But as always with Blake Lively, that's the way that the story goes. So for right now, Blake is trying to flip the narrative. She's trying to make Wayfair look like they're not complying. She wants them to produce untraceable documents that don't exist. And she's also revealed that this dispute could have been about an easy thing. Blake not getting a bonus performance. And the fact that the 17-point agreement is not even a 17 protections agreement. It was her nudity rider. It was a nudity rider. That's what it was. It was an updated nudity rider that she renegotiated. It wasn't protections. It was her nudity rider, which makes so much more sense now. That document was all for intimate scenes. It was all for sex scenes. It had to do with domestic violence scenes where she would be showing her body and physical work that she would be doing that would require levels of undress. That's what that entire 17-point document is about. That was an updated, negotiated nudity rider. So, of course, they could manipulate that to make it look like it was sexual harassment. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that wild? I think that could be her biggest lie in this entire story. The 17-point agreement was not about protection to make a safer environment. It was an updated nudity rider to take control of the film. And then when she needed to sue to for them to take blame for marketing that she caused, then it's sexual harassment. It's remarkable, really. Tell me what your thoughts are in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed and click the bell so you never miss a video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, besties.